it's Paul, that bourbon guy, up above my whiskey warehouse, and this is my recent trip from Kentucky. Let me tell you about it. Started off with going down to Covington to see Uncorked to do a little bottle shopping. While there, was able to pick up this bottle of Bridle and Bits cigar blend. This is a backup of one I already have. It's mostly gone. Really enjoy the finish on it. Something that actually came in second place in a finished blind test with a local group up here. So I was happy to find one as a backup. Second bottle is Uncorked's own private pick of a Jack Daniel's single barrel proof, coming in at 134.9 proof. Finally, I got this bottle of Kentucky Owl Batch 12. It's the final release from Kentucky Owl. As many have heard, they have gone out of business. Fortunately, Uncorked had several cases left, and they were offering a bottle at more than half off. So that was an opportunity I couldn't pass up. After I was done shopping, I met up with the team from the Whiskey Sippers channel. They were doing a barrel pick over at New Ref. So we met up for some dinner. I got to listen to their stories, and they were kind enough to give me these samples from each of the barrels that they've experienced during their pick. I also happen to have their notes that I will read later after I go and sample them on my own and see if my selection matches theirs. To Renee, I'd like to say thank you for giving me these samples so I can enjoy that experience. After we were done with dinner, we went to the party source where Fred No from the Jim Beam Distilling Company was present signing bottles. I happen to own this Jim Beam lineage, so I brought that with me, and he was able to sign that bottle. While there, I also got the Jim Beam 7-year black label, as well as the Winter Reserve signed by Fred. They also had some freebies that they were giving out, some hats and scarves, so I picked up a scarf while I was there as well. When everybody was done at the party source, we went back to the hotel for a bottle share. There were many bottles opened up during that event. Kentucky Owl was one of them. Jim Beam was another one. Others had bottles of their own that they opened up to share with everybody.
Challenges. One eternity later.
Do it.
All right, hold on. We got silence. Silence. We got a fresh
there we
crack.
go.
Fresh crack.
We now say goodbye to Kentucky Owl.
Bye. I don't think we're gonna say goodbye. America.
Ready?
Do it.
Ooh, kind of loose.
Come on. Oh,
To see more, go over to the Whiskey Sippers channel and watch their live stream. The following day, Devin, Patrick, and I went out to Woodford.
All right. Hey, it's Devin with the Whiskey Sippers and Paul, that bourbon guy. And we're here at Woodford to see if we get some Woodford Double Oak 2025 release. So stay tuned. Watch out.
And we were able to pick up the new Double Oak that has just been released. Once that was done, we proceeded to head over to Buffalo Trace.
That bourbon guy.
And Devin with the Whiskey Sippers.
And I'm just a big time fan of both these channels.
Here at Buffalo Trace Distillery.
Yeah.
Get that Christmas tree in there. Get that Christmas tree.
Get the Christmas tree in there. There's a Christmas tree.
You gotta take that down.
No. Stays up year round. Stays up year round, just like my house.
Yeah. Blanton's Day.
Yep.
It happened to be Blanton's Day. So I picked up a bottle of Blanton's. Still working on my letters. I'm not in any rush, but that was good to find as well. Picked up a couple glasses. Also picked up a Blanton sweater and a Buffalo Trace sweater, as well as the Weller's coaster. And then I was able to get tickets to come back later to do an E.H. Taylor tour. Devin had to go off and go back home. Patrick and I had the taste, and oddly enough was being served to us by Devin.
Cheers to Devin.
Cheers.
Buffalo Trace.
Yeah. We replaced you, Devin, with a better one.
Oh, yeah.
After that was done, we went over to Four Roses. It was my first time at Four Roses, so I was able to enjoy some drinks and picked up this private selection single barrel while I was there, and a couple glasses as well. Once we were done at Four Roses, we went over to Wild Turkey. I was hoping that maybe I'd get a chance to see Jimmy Russell, but no, I'm now 0-3. Still, we had a good drink, picked up a glass, picked up a coaster. And then at that point, Patrick had to take off to head back home, and I had to go back to Buffalo Trace for my E.H. Taylor tour. So I made it just in time for the tour, and that was a great experience. If you're into history, understanding the origins of Buffalo Trace, it's a tour worth taking. You get to see a lot of historical sites. It's not about the making of the bourbon. If you want the making of the bourbon, you go for the general Buffalo Trace tour. This is about the history. You get to see the old Taylor house. You also get to see what is called the Bourbon Pompeii. It's an uncovering of what used to be the original distillery of Old Fire Copper, OFC, which eventually turned into what is now known as Buffalo Trace today. The tour was great, lots of cool artifacts that were uncovered. Got to see the river, Kentucky River, that's outside. You get to see how the river plays a vital part of impacting the life at Buffalo Trace. Got to taste some samples while I was there in their clubhouse from the E.H. Taylor line. It was the small batch, single barrel, and barrel proof bourbons. It's an excellent tour, and I highly recommend people to sign up for it if they have that opportunity. Once I was done at Buffalo Trace, I went into Lexington to go take a look at Liquor Barn to see what was available. And I was able to pick up this bottle of the Sagamore Double Oak Rye. I've had some samples in the past, but never been able to get the bottle. They had one there at a reasonable price and was able to pick that up. For my last stop, I went back into Covington and was able to stop at the Revival Vintage Bar and Bottle Shop. So there is a new location for the company. It is now a 2-floor setup. The first floor is purely a vintage bar, so you can have pours from various vintage bottles as well as some current bottles as well. The special of the day that I was able to have was a comparison of Wild Turkey 101. One pour from the early 2000s and one pour from today's release. So after having both pours from Wild Turkey 101, let me tell you that pour from the early 2000s, that was the better pour. The nose and the taste had more intensity than today's release. Today's release is fine. It's a great go-to. I have it all the time when I'm at my bowling league. But the older version from the early 2000s, it brought that flavor even more forward and more flavorful, more pleasurable. Wish we had some of the older ones today. But if you go upstairs, that's their bottled shop, and therefore you may have a chance of actually finding one of those old bottles. They have a wide variety of vintage bottles from the early 1930s, maybe even older, up until the early 2000s. It was a lot of fun looking around. I bought a bottle there last year. It was an old Jim Beam from 1968. It was a seashell that was unopened. So I opened it up last year in November. Fabulous drink. Perfect dustiness. It was a classic Jim Beam note. The one thing I did pick up though was this tiny little bottle right here. It's APW, and yes, that is Ass Pocket Whiskey. Had to get it for the name. It's a company that is local to the Covington area. They were able to source some 10-year bourbon from somewhere in Kentucky. Some say it's Heaven Hill. It definitely has some nuttiness to it. So once I had that sample, saw the label, and I said, yeah, it's worth getting as well. So really, that's it for the tour of what I did while I was out in Kentucky. Oh, one extra thing. I also happened to pick up this Jack Daniel's 12-year. This is batch 2. I won that in a local raffle and just picked that up today. So that's kind of a nice bonus to the end of the trip. So that's it for everything that I've done with my trip to Kentucky. Please like, comment, and subscribe, and let me know what you did for your trips out to Kentucky, or trips to anywhere else that involved a distillery. Until then, if anyone asks, tell them you heard it from That Bourbon Guy.